being honest, I'm just gonna say it, I am never gonna do another ride for Uber, Lyft, or any other ride-sharing company ever again. Now, I want to stress right in the beginning of this video, the main reason why I'm never going to drive again, I'm never going to be an Uber driver, a Lyft driver, a rideshare driver in general, is because all my pursuits of music and YouTube have worked out where I pretty much do this full time. I wake up, I make YouTube videos, I make music, and then I go to bed, which is pretty awesome. However, even with that being the case, there's still a bunch of different reasons as to why I will never drive again. Mainly 5 different reasons. Number 1, money. This is no surprise to anybody. Uber drivers and Lyft drivers make significantly less than they used to. I will say as an asterisk on this, I like to be very transparent on my videos and everything. I've interviewed a lot of drivers and I've noticed a huge spread. Very similar to what's going on in the economy right now. You know, as we've heard, the middle class is shrinking more and more, and it almost seems like the lower class is getting lower, and the upper class is getting higher. In a very similar way, I've noticed when it comes to Uber and Lyft drivers, there are about, I'd say, 25% of drivers who make a significant amount. I'm talking a really good amount of money driving, and they love it. However, about 75% of drivers make way less than they used to, and they absolutely hate it. And I gotta say, overall, this is getting more and more polarized, where maybe next year, even later this year, 20% or 15% of drivers will love their income, and 80 to 90% will hate their income. Again, no surprise to anybody, drivers get paid way less than ever before, especially considering all the other factors I'm about to talk about. And that's definitely a big reason, as you can imagine, because let's be honest, you're driving to make side cash, right? There's a lot of benefits to being an Uber driver and a Lyft driver. The flexible schedule, instant cash outs, you can, not have to listen to a boss, etc., etc. At the same time, though, if you're not making enough money, especially compared to a lot of other jobs, and especially because the gig economy is so popular right now, I mean, back in the day, Uber and Lyft was pretty much a miracle to a lot of people where they're like, wow, I can be my own boss, I can make my own schedule, etc., etc. Now, though, there's a lot of other jobs that are very similar to that also pay a good amount, and if anything, way more than Uber and Lyft, minus all the negative aspects. And so overall, the money is just not what it used to be. Number 2, the liability. This is a big one that, especially over time, has gotten just a lot more tricky and annoying. For example, I've mentioned in a bunch of videos, you typically now have to have rideshare insurance. If, let's say, you get into an accident, you call your insurance company, you say, oh yeah, I was driving for Uber and this happened, and they're like, whoa, we didn't know you were driving for Uber or Lyft or another company, we're not going to cover you. And probably not surprisingly, insurance companies will use any excuse they can to not cover your claim for whatever reason. Although, yes, Uber and Lyft does have like their own kind of insurance policies depending on the state, the city, just the area, really depends. This is just another thing you have to worry about. Statistically speaking, the more that you're on the road, the more likely you are to get into an accident. It's just numbers. In addition, as a driver, there's a lot more liability as well when it comes to passengers. I mean, this is statistics, I will say that, but if you think about it, I mean, with all the rides happening now, and how quickly and easy it is to download the Uber or Lyft app and sign up, we've heard of a lot more drivers being attacked, and vice versa. Drivers attacking passengers. This is something you really have to think about, and that's why I suggest to a lot of drivers, make sure you have a dash cam. Although a dash cam, it's one of those things that's not required to be a driver, but it pretty much is. And for most dash cams, or at least good ones, they both film the outside of your car and the inside. That way, if something happens with you and a passenger, if let's say something happens with you and another car on the road, you have the evidence to prove your side of the story. In addition, going along with that, deactivations have gotten a lot more popular, and this is really annoying and frustrating for a lot of drivers because let's say there's a minor dispute, nothing too crazy, but a minor dispute between a passenger and a driver. Typically, I'd say 90% of the time, Uber and Lyft will side with the passenger, not with the driver. So what they will do on average is, like, say, deactivate their account where they can't work for, like, say, a week or 2 weeks, do an investigation, and then come back and typically say to the driver, like, hey, we're sorry, they were just being rude, they were being annoying, they fabricated a story, etc., etc. You can work again. But then it's like, great, yeah, my account's now active again, but I just missed out on 2 weeks of work. And this can happen at pretty much any time. That's one of the really unfortunate things, especially as a rideshare driver. Uber and Lyft, with pretty much no warning or no heads up, can deactivate your account, which means now you cannot work whatsoever. And I know a lot of drivers who have said to me like, hey Mark, yeah, I got deactivated 2 or 3 times. Now I'm at the point, and it's understandable, where any single time I now pull up the driver app to drive, there's this little voice in the back of my head saying, I hope you can work today, because if I can't make money, I can't put food on the table, I can't pay bills. There's just a lot of liability. Number 3, expenses. Now, this is something I don't talk about in a lot of videos. So I have mentioned a lot in terms of the general expenses of being a driver. You have to pay gas, you have to pay more in oil changes, maintenance on your car, depreciation on your car, etc., etc. But on the flip side of that, if you look at it from a big picture perspective, it is kind of annoying and frustrating that if you think about it, you almost have to, in a sense, spend money to make money. Now, one big aspect of being a rideshare driver that a lot of people are not used to is the accounting behind it. And in case you didn't know, I'm a former accountant. So for me, I'm kind of used to that, right? Especially now being an independent contractor when it comes to YouTube and music and everything, the taxes are kind of similar. But that is one aspect I will say when it comes to Uber and Lyft, you're gonna have to keep track of your receipts. You have to save a lot of your money. If, let's say you make, and I'm making this up, $24 in an hour, I would take 6 to 8 of those dollars every hour, put it in a savings account, because typically you'll not get money back during tax time. You will owe money. These are things a lot of people are not used to. But even still, even with me understanding the whole accounting aspects, there's still a lot of expenses. You know, like I said, when it comes to YouTube and music, I know it's kind of funny to say, I don't have to spend money to film these videos. I don't have to spend any extra money to make a new song or anything, right? Unless I need like a new plugin or whatever, but typically not. But when it comes to Uber and Lyft, you have to spend money every single time you want to go out and drive. You have to be prepared that you can put a lot of wear and tear on your vehicle. Even if you don't have your own vehicle, you still have to rent one, which is typically about $200 to $300 every week, which means you're starting in the hole. And let's say you have to spend $250 a week for a car and you make $250, you've now only just broken even. Another aspect, like I said before, is rideshare insurance. Now, luckily, it's not that much more expensive. You're looking at anywhere between $6 and $25 extra a month. So it's not completely outrageous, but that's still another expense you have to consider. And one last one that a lot of drivers don't really know about, because if you think about it, I feel like for most drivers who drive for Uber and Lyft, they typically use their own vehicle. And if you want to trade that vehicle in, this can cause some odd issues, because now a lot of dealerships, like say you want to go in and either sell your car for cash or like say sell your car and get a new car, however you want to do it, a lot of dealerships now have like, you know, a checklist about this car, like has it ever been in an accident, you know, kind of standard stuff. One of the top questions they now all ask, has this car ever been used for a taxi-like service such as Uber, Lyft, or another ride-sharing company? Number 4 is the timing of hours. This is a very unique one that at first didn't really bother me that much, but over time I was like, oh my god, this is just super frustrating. Now, I have mentioned before in other videos, the best times to make the most amount of money are the peak hours. In case you don't know what those are, you're looking at morning commutes, evening commutes, Friday and Saturday nights. With morning commutes, you're looking at about 7 to 9 a.m., evening commutes being 5 to 7 p.m., and with Friday and Saturday nights, you're looking at about 9 p.m., maybe even 8 p.m., depending on the night, till about 2 or 3 a.m. And if you think about it, let's say you want to drive during the week. You want to drive during the peak hours, where you're really looking at the morning commutes, huge break, and then the evening commutes. And at first, I had a pretty decent schedule. I'd wake up at about 6:45 a.m., kind of quickly get ready, change and everything, get on the road, drive from 7 to then 9 a.m. Then I'd work on music and YouTube and everything from about, like, say, 9:30 a.m. by the time I got home till about 4:30 p.m. And then I go back out and drive. And at first, I was like, oh, this is a great schedule. I wake up, you know, get a couple hours out of the way, come back, work on everything I want to work on, then go back out and drive. But over time, it got a lot more frustrating and annoying. Like, say if I was working on a song, I was really in the zone, and I checked the time, and I'm like, oh shoot, it's 4:15. I'm probably gonna have to leave in 15 minutes. There's something very annoying about knowing that even though I just got back from working, eventually I'm gonna have to go back out and work again. I almost kind of felt like, and this is the only way I can word it, that my work schedule, so to speak, didn't really end until about 7 p.m. when I was fully done driving. Because again, like I was working on a new video, on a new record, there was still that voice in the back of my head saying, hey, you still have to go out, you still have to work. And in the beginning, like I said, it didn't really bother me as much, but over time I was like, you know what? I would much rather just drive 4 hours straight than 2 hours, huge break, and then 2 hours. There were even times where, like, say, go out and drive on, like, say, a Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday or a Monday or whatever. And I was like, you know what if I just do, 7 a.m. till 1 p.m. just to see if it's possible to make a good amount of money. And being honest, during the non-peak hours, I'm not joking, I would make on average like $5 to $7 an hour, not factoring in expenses during the non-peak hours. 100% not worth it. And this is a big thing I say to a lot of drivers. Like, let's say you have a very random schedule. Let's say you have a 9 to 5 job, but you also want to go out and enjoy your Friday and Saturday nights with friends or however you want to do it. Well, if let's say you can only drive during Saturday and Sunday during the day, for example, yeah, there are some pockets randomly that can pay a good amount, but typically not that much. As you can imagine, like I said, driving during the peak hours are the best ways to make a lot of money. So if you can't drive during those times, you're not gonna make that much money at all. But in addition to that, like I said, for me, it was just very frustrating to have my hours staggered throughout the week, where I would rather almost just work straight, be done, then work a little bit here, work a little bit there, just have all these like odd times in between. Number 5, physical health. This is a really big one that I think not a lot of drivers think about, at least in the beginning. I think over time you start to feel it, but I gotta be honest, especially when I went from part-time to full-time, I definitely noticed, it wasn't like a huge dramatic change, but it was definitely a noticeable one nonetheless when it comes to my physical health. I don't know what it is and I can't really explain it, but when it comes to driving, even like say 2 or 3 hours, there's something that's very physically exhausting about it. And in case you didn't know, I work out a lot. I'm huge into parkour and acrobatics, calisthenics, breakdancing, but even still, when I get back, like say from all this driving that I was doing, I'd get back and be like, okay, I should do a workout. I just don't have the energy to. There's something really weird, and I can't even explain about driving, where on one end, and I mean this in a positive way, the hours fly by faster than anything I've ever done. Like even 2 or 3 hours goes by in a blink of an eye when it comes to driving. I don't know what it is, but something about the hours fly by. At the same time though, it's just super exhausting. And there's been a lot of recent studies to show that sitting for long periods of time has detrimental effects of your health. I mean, not just sitting and not doing anything, but if you think about like your back posture, like say if your seat's too reclined back, I will say I did try to be like in the right position while I was sitting upright and everything every time I drove. But I mean, it can really add up in terms of your physical health over time. And again, this is something that I really started to notice when I went from part-time driving to full-time driving, to the point where I'm like, man, I'm not working out that much. I feel like I'm just sitting all the time. I feel way more tired than I would even think, because I mean, I'm really just sitting. It's not like I'm like doing these crazy exercises or anything. I'm literally just sitting for hours on end, but there's something about it that's so tiring that I did notice really started to affect my physical health.